So it was actually really, really wild. So that story kind of gets like a lot of attention, and they're like, okay, this is why you're in Japan, right? It all started there, right? The day we had to fly, like we were literally homeless. We had no car, we had no home. All our things were gone.
Dog, you could bring
The
dog.
dogs I had to leave behind because of the particular breed. No airlines would take them because of the safety factors, and so we had to leave them with friends.
Okay.
Which broke our hearts, but I mean that's some of the sacrifice you have to do when you're
Take a choice.
making a choice, new chapter in life, right?
Too extreme. But
Very
in
too-
America, if you cannot pay your bills, you are on the street and nobody care.
That's it.
So that's something that cannot really be happen in Japan. Yeah.
Taking big risks and taking big steps because of that. If I trip, everybody's going to never let me live that down.
Welcome to Life in Japan. I'm Sébastien Ricci, a designer entrepreneur living in Japan with my family. In this episode, I meet people who have chosen to build a life here. We talk about their journey, their work, and own experience of Japan. So, welcome to a new episode of Life in Japan. So, okay, we are already on. So, thank you, Dwayne, for coming today.
Thank you for the invitation.
For the new name, I changed the name in Life in Japan.
Mhm.
I called the new podcast. Before was a French name, Nouveau au Japon. We can say our lives in Japan. And I'm Sébastien Ricci. I'm designer living in close to Osaka in Nishinomiya. And I'm happy to have today Dwayne. He will explain, or you will explain your journey, what you do, where you came from, and also interesting for me, you have a couple of experience that's very interesting. Like you have been worked in Las Vegas, so just what is the life in Las Vegas? Why the design? Why Japan? What do you do with your company? You made a company with a partner as well. So let's pass through this journey. And maybe I will start to present yourself.
Yeah. So again, thank you for the invitation. I'm
You're welcome.
Very honored to be on the segment here. So my name is Dwayne Grech. I'm the co-founder and CEO of HelloXLab KK. So we're an Osaka-based spatial and XR design and software development company. I originally hail from Toronto, Canada. Where son of immigrants from Europe, and go through that whole story of working hard and trying to find your place, and eventually making my way to Japan 6 years ago via the U.S. So I've emigrated out of Canada 10 years ago. So now my identity is about the journey around, right? Where I find myself and the people around me.
You say immigrate. Your family was immigrating in Canada, or your grandfather, or before?
My parents. So I'm like second generation Canadian.
Okay.
Yeah, so both my parents emigrated from Ireland and Malta. So my dad's Maltese, my mom's Irish. They came to Canada. I was born there, my siblings. So, we're part of that Euro-Canadian sort of story. That's just very, very common there. And then throughout my career, the flexibility of being in design is, I can kind of go anywhere where the opportunities are. So.
And how old your parents immigrated to Canada?
My mom was, she was 18. I think she came. So my dad was a bit older. He already had like proper education out of the Mediterranean. So he was like an engineer and architect already.
Okay.
And so, and then in the 70s, it was like the late 70s when they both ended up in Canada for different reasons.
Okay. So your immigration family.
Right. Yeah.
But born in Canada.
I was born in Canada.
Okay. And what was your first job? I'm interested also to ask this kind of question.
So the very first job, not related to the work that I do, I was 16 And then it's kind of an Irish tradition there. You turn 16, you're old enough to work. All right, so birthday cake, here's a sweater, go get a job.
Mm-hmm.
So the first job, sort of to help me start learning responsibilities, I worked in a sushi restaurant,
Really?
the only one in the small town that we're at, and there were no Japanese families out there. So, that was kind of like the first real time where like the east coast of Canada, was seeing Japanese food, and
Mm-hmm.
not only just Japanese food, but like sushi. And so that was such an exotic thing first time. So it was actually really, really wild. So that story kind of gets like a lot of attention, and they're like, okay, this is why you're in Japan, right? It all started there, right? So I was working dishwashing, and then I was actually then, up to a certain point, I was so efficient with the dishwashing. I think that the bosses were just like, okay, we got to give them something to do. It's like, okay, you're going to start making bento boxes in the back, but you just cannot show yourself in front because then you break the illusion. It's like, what is this place? So I was making like, bento boxes and tempura,
Okay.
for a bit until I was like, all right, well, I need to go find some other job.
It was your first contact with Japan, or I would say it's not really a Japanese culture because you say the
Right.
owner was not Japanese, but
No, I mean, I think like most creatives, I think was Japanese art and, anime was always that first thing. My co-founder for my company was also, him and I went to high school together. And so we would watch anime at his place. He actually did an exchange program in high school. And so he came to and lived in Osaka for a year. And that sort of kind of started everything for me and our circle of friends. Yeah.
Okay, so it was really a co-founder long time ago friend.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But before you joined
Hmm.
him here in Osaka, so where did you study, and like how you and when did you move to Vegas?
Yeah.
So
So I did my undergrad and my postgrad in Toronto. I did my undergrads doing traditional graphic design. My father wanted me to follow his footsteps in being an engineer or architect, as he thought that, hey, that would be, constant, solid work, session proof, you'll move out quite quickly, type of thing, then be self-sufficient. But I was terrible at math, so I either wanted to do traditional animation, work for Disney, but I ended
okay,
up becoming a graphic designer. This was like the early days of like Photoshop, and I was actually really, really interested in that. So I studied that, and then I started traveling around Southeast Asia. I lived in Australia for a bit, and then a few years later, I did my postgrad in web design and marketing, and then that's really where my career started in Toronto.
because you were in this time, the web design was starting, the Photoshop was
Yeah. So
beginning.
I was kind of like that last generation of traditional designers with like a printed portfolio case that you would walk around, right?
Ah,
So I
really?
did not have a website. So my school was like internet is like a fad, it's never going to kill the print business. So it was always about like, you're going to be making magazines and posters and, forget about this .com thing.
So you were like a collage or
So
kind
yeah,
of things.
I had the big, I had a hand-me-down leather portfolio case from my father. Right, he ripped out all of his architectural drawings. It's okay, now you can put in your big 11 by 17, 12 by 18 prints in there. And here I am, and it's serious weights, right? Because I had 3 years plus of work, and I'm traveling Australia with a backpack for a year of clothes and in a leather portfolio case, and people are like, this guy's mental. Because then they're asking me, hey, do you know this thing called HTML and Flash web design? Nope. So I really like, okay, I think I'm going to have to reassess my future career plans when I get back to Canada.
Okay.
And so by that time it was like 2007, just before the recession. I graduate doing my postgrad, and I'm in advertising, working a lot of different banking and automotive clients. And it was an exciting time, and it was also pretty chaotic, but that opened me up to what would eventually be spatial design. So a lot of like UI UX didn't exist.
I know in this time.
Right.
it
So
wasn't.
it was kind of these underground sort of interest and research on how to make websites and any sort of digital touch points more engaging there, and then how would that translate into sort of spatial activations? Because one of my companies, we did a lot of auto show exhibit design, and that was quite interesting, where
Okay.
architecture and engineering and storytelling and digital touch points and animation all kind of came together there. And
During the show, so the
Yeah.
Vegas show. No,
no, this would be like in Toronto.
Okay,
So
okay.
we do like auto. We had clients like Dodge and Chrysler, and so when they would
Like a
have,
more on a
Yeah.
pop-up roadshows.
That's right.
Not the big fair or
No, like
Okay,
like
okay.
showroom stuff or any sort of like digital promotions of sorts. So if it wasn't a poster or a brochure, can there something like an interactive touch wall? All right, and some basic stuff there, right? They're
Okay.
trying to translate what was the beginnings of the iPhone and the iPad that were in the market now. There's a new sense of user engagement opportunities there.
You never work on the banner.
I did.
You
So
did?
I tried to get
Advertising?
at it. So I apologize to the worlds for
You
website
can.
pop-ups, takeovers.
You were
and
part of.
I was a part of a lot of that, unfortunately. It was just a way for me to pay the bills and beer money and pizza. Right?
And during this time, you were working at your own, or you were working with a?
No, I worked for an agency. I worked for Y&R, Young and Rubicon, Omnicom agencies. And these are these big conglomerates, right? So I never ended up working for Publicis, but everybody would just jump around, right? And then at some points, you would have all the big agencies come and buy up all the small shops, right? So it was just basically these giant brands, mini companies that were just so incestual and fighting each other over projects. So at that point, I was just doing a lot of like very boring minimalist UI design for banks, and it paid the bills, but boy, was it soul sucking. And about 2013 is when I started discovering TeamLab, right? As sort of like this, interesting art house kind of experience, right?
So long. I didn't know they were.
Well, not TeamLab as we know it now, but they were doing a lot of sort of like mini little projects.
Experimental.
Yeah. So they were kind of in sort of the experimental phase of things, and so projection mapping was still kind of considered like one-off sort of guerrilla marketing, or like art festivals kind of things like New Tech, or even Art Basel. So not in the mainstream as you would see it today, right? And so websites and some magazines that I subscribed to showed hints of TeamLab and Canada's Moment Factory, like our version of TeamLab. And it was like, what is this thing? What is this projection mapping? What can we do with that there? And so I was like, oh, that sparked some interest in me to go and explore that on my own time. So I took that interest and that inspiration and started doing my own projection mapping sort of projects, just for fun. And that turned into a couple exhibits that I did both in Canada and the US, and got me an invitation to go and set up a newly planned experience design departments in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And experience design at this point was the newest coined term for something. At that point, UI and UX was already defined. And so that was sort of the thing that people were trying to gravitate to.
We were in.
I was still in Toronto.
Yeah, but what year it was like?
Oh, so I was still like 2013.
Okay,
Yeah, 2013.
okay.
And then 2016, I moved to Vegas. So between 13 and 16, I was exploring different digital mediums, from just the, using graphic design, digitally to create, layouts, something a bit more, appeasing when we look to a website, or any sort of digital interface.
So maybe for people who doesn't know, so TeamLab is a famous XR company. So how do you say XR? Like
Experience design. Yeah.
That they have several places in Japan only, I guess.
They're worldwide.
I've been in the one in Okinawa, have in Tokyo. They have one in Kyoto now.
Osaka.
Osaka.
They're
So
in Singapore. They're in Dubai now.
And I really, well, I know sometimes the time to go in is long, but it's very interesting and beautiful artist experience. And yeah, will blow your mind for sure. It will blow mine. Like crazy. Just to give an example, like the one I've been in Okinawa was a full space with many fish or special fish, like you are under the sea. And the kids are drawing them fish, they scan, and you can see on the map.
That's right.
And yeah, so as I have many places, not only this one, but many places very interesting, and I invite everyone to see it. So
absolutely,
I understand that it blew your mind. It's the first time we can see. I would say it's the first studio we could see like a real big artistic experience. I would say. Still now, I didn't see no one doing in this level of detail, and no, for me, yes, I've seen some experience like now in Europe, like we have Van Gogh. They have like big XR or big screen and very big projection everywhere with Van Gogh, but it's never like this level of experience and touch, I guess.
Well, and this is what I was saying earlier about it being mainstream now, is that that's a new investment for companies and advertisers to get in. Like this is kind of what people are expecting now. So TeamLab kind of really helped push the ball down the hill and is now really picking up pace. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing all these other opportunities worldwide, right? We're seeing, a common language when it comes to design and experiences there. Now, the approach will be different. The substance in the story is different there, which is fine. But we're seeing that like that's just now normal, which is great.
Yeah, it's great. But it's still, I experienced already some of them in my last company called Maison Iconia, and there we have done several experience with XR. When you touch or something happen, it's always a complex project as well. Not regarding the technical part, also the graphic part is never super easy.
No.
I would say the mapping. So mapping, how do you describe mapping? You can say it is projection on something in 3D or
yes, that's right. So probably the most, let's see here. The most basic definition I can describe projection mapping is the 3D mapping of a surface using two-dimensional projections of objects that are interpreted in 3D. So then from the user's perspective, it looks like it's naturally in 3-dimensional.
Yeah,
it has that depth and that perspective there. So it's using a lot of force perspective and engineering to fool the mind that something that is flat and 2-dimensional feels 3D with depth there. And so that's contrary to like your traditional home projector, right? There's a lot of background physics and geometry is being done to give that illusion.
Yeah, it was really complex works, but the experience is very interesting. And one I think is also very public and quite famous, so started to be quite famous, is the Petit Chef, the restaurants. Like there are one in Osaka, but they're all around the world, I guess. Yeah. So the Petit Chef is each table has a projector on the ceiling, and each plate or meal has an animation regarding what you gonna eat.
That's right.
Have you tried it? Or
I haven't. I know my office is actually pretty close by to that location in Osaka, so it's just booking a time and just either going myself or bringing somebody to do that.
Yeah, I haven't too, but I've seen some video and it's interesting.
You could be my date.
We can date together.
There we go.
Okay, and So back to, so you arrive in Vegas.
Yes.
So what is the life in Vegas? How it's to work and live in Vegas? So, of
Yeah.
course, for your, sorry, for your job
Yes.
is like the place to be. I mean, the screen is everywhere, and it is booming up so much since
Right.
as they made a full
Yeah.
sphere
The sphere.
building.
Yeah. I mean, the months coming up to it. So there was a number of like meetings and back and forth flights, to interview. And, I had only been to Vegas once just for like a quick trip. And all I knew was just the strip. So I didn't know really how big Vegas was, and that it was just like a normal city like anywhere else. But, all the marketing and all the impression of it's just like what happens on that 2 mile strip. And so I thought, like, am I living like in a casino? Like, where's it like, it blew my mind, right? And so I was about 20 minutes outside of the strip, just in
very close.
closer to the Californian border there, and like, yeah, that's like west side called Summerlin, and just a regular place, right? It didn't feel like you were in Vegas, but it was quite nice. It was clean, it was safe. It was I mean, convenient-esque for being an American desert city. But no, it was good. It was didn't really have much expectations, but I think I went down because the US dollar was good. It was a good paying job. It was something very, very different, and it was reflective of what my change in my career tastes and interests were. So there was alignment there, and it wasn't working directly with the casinos. It was working with the travel tourism board. So it was a government project for the agency that advertises Las Vegas there.
The agency you were working for?
Yes.
And they help you to sponsor your visa, I guess.
Yeah, well, the sponsorship is actually a lot easier than the common, sponsored visas in there. Because I'm a Canadian, I fell under the NAFTA visa, which has now been renamed and I think even now canceled since. And it was a special visa called the TN, and it was only available to American, Canadian, and Mexican nationals. And so as long as you're in a career that fell under like a very rudimentary list of careers, I think they set up back in the 80s and 90s, right? And like then you could qualify. And it was, I think, something like $50 or something like that for it. And from the company's side, all they had to do was basically say, yes, we'll hire him. And that's all their obligation there.
So yeah, anyway, on the company.
Yeah.
So if they fire you, you
yes,
lost your
you're
visa,
attached to that
but
visa.
it's much more easy than other visas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it was very much a employer locked in visa.
Yeah.
And I qualified because graphic design was still considered a necessary skilled labor, to hire under, which is like really, really bizarre because like that was definitely something that was written a long time ago and not updated. But my job title had to say graphic designer. I was being hired as like a director for experience design. And so my job title had to get reduced to senior graphic designer because then it would null and void if it wasn't that, which was such a bizarre thing to talk to American immigration about, like the nuance and semantics of the title versus the industry.
I always heard like some way to get the visas, like some lawyer make you as you are the one of America needs.
Right.
So it's always weird, like you are the architect, like nobody exists in America.
Yeah.
In fact, you are just a normal designer, right?
Right.
Or I mean, a project manager or whatever is in fact the job.
Right.
It's like I can imagine.
Oh yeah. I think of the visas, that's probably the easiest one that I didn't actually have to need a lawyer. I just did it myself. It was a very, very simple process there, but there was so much that could go wrong, and it did. I mean, I got denied the first time, so I had to wait like 2 weeks later.
It's okay.
And it was like, no, it's fine. It was good. I worked with Brazilians, in our office, in our LA offices there, that were on O1 visas, and these are like really high skilled creative visas. So not only did they have to bring in a lawyer and be very, very expensive, they had to show like, yeah, we've won Emmys and Oscars and Cannes Lions, right? So like a book just evidence for that. Me, it was just sort of, I just showed up like, yeah, I'm a graphic designer. Here's the offer
Okay.
letter. There's my
Visa.
$50. It's like, okay, great, cool.
Nice.
Bon voyage. And then renew every 3 years.
Wow. And
So,
so you arrived there
Yeah.
with your bag and start to work for them.
yeah. So started working. I mean, it couldn't find an apartment. So I was sleeping on the couch for, the guy that hired me, which was a guy I used to work with in Toronto. And until I could get an apartment because I had no credit history in the US. So I was literally starting from scratch. So I feel like, so this is what my parents felt like when they first came to Canada in the 70s. It's like, okay, welcome to the new world. Good luck. You have to start from the very beginning, right? And that's what it was. It was 4 years of just like building things up, and building up my career and, and seeing my past experiences, my past education, where did it all lead up to this point, and how can I evolve even further in this new environment?
And how can you explain some story about that? Because I can imagine how hard it could be when it's not the company. Even they offer you the job. What you mean they didn't offer you the full package. So I mean the full package is the container with your stuff arrived. This
Yeah.
is your place you can. This is the key. So
Yeah.
you arrive with
Yeah.
with your airplane and your two luggage and good luck.
Well, I realized I could easily have negotiated more, but
Too late.
I exactly like, I just saw like, cool, here's what we're offering you in US dollars. Like, all right, I'll take it. Great.
You want just anyway.
That's it. I was just like, just get me in as quickly as possible. But like, I could have asked for like an apartment for 6 months. I was just like,
and
sure.
how did you find the apartment?
It was literally just, I think it was like a rental app they have out there. I think it was called Zillow, right? And I was just looking for, and I happened to find an apartment that was like literally down the street from my office that just went up on the site within like 17 minutes of me being there. So I was the first one there on it, and I was the first one to contact the landlord. And it was like, okay, well, first come, first serve. Here you go. And it was very convenient. I could walk to work or drive very quickly. And it was just in such a really nice area. There was a very nice detached house. I'm like, oh my God, I get to rent a house for less than my apartment back in Toronto, which is like, this is just blowing my mind right now,
Wow. Well, in America than Japan, when I've been there, like it's much more easier to open a bank account or get a phone. Almost they give you the phone as like
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, you're
even
right.
two
Yeah.
credit card.
I opened up a bank account just out of boredom. I just walked from my friend's home to the nearest bank, was across the street from the office. It's like, yep, great, here you go, done.
Yeah, for that I'm surprised.
And then I went next door and got my phone. Like, great, cool. I didn't even have an address yet. Didn't even ask me for it. It's like, are you legally allowed to be here? Yep.
Yeah.
Great, that's good enough for us.
Your identity and all of this stuff, okay, but
exactly.
the basic things, but doesn't expect more than that. What I'm talking about that because who come to Japan and will understand what challenge is to open a bank account, get a phone, and even an apartment is really
this is the
level
interesting
of challenge.
Comparison between the years in Vegas and then the years in Japan and that transition points. So yeah, very, very stark because setting up a business, setting up your life, setting up your identity, right? That those first few really important steps to settle down somewhere is, will make or break your experience going forward, right? Or make you really sort of pay attention to how easy some processes and some places are than others,
Yeah, also, we are both like, I don't know when you arrive, if you are already married, you get it?
Yeah, I was already married.
Because also we are in case that we are married with Japanese wife.
Yeah.
So most of these things was hopefully made and help with my wife. But I cannot, and I always I'm surprised and so I have some friend who also I interview that they arrive from scratch with nobody. Like wow, it's like for me, it's really another challenge than us. So
Yeah, I mean, having a Japanese spouse and being on the spouse visa when I finally got that really did make a difference, but they also kind of didn't as well, right? It's like cool. So you're legally allowed to be here, but that didn't make opening up a bank account or getting a phone or
no.
all these things make it any
But
easier.
somebody helped you to. My wife
Yeah,
helped me to discover the way that we can open this account.
sure.
If it's only myself,
Yeah,
of course, if somebody arrive in Japan with a super high level of Japanese, maybe it's much more easier. But if your level of Japanese is not
yeah,
good enough,
yeah.
the challenge is.
Well, that's always been, the duality of the society here. So you're kind of scrutinized on how trustworthy you are based on the length of time you've been here or will be, or
Mhm.
your association with people. Like, are you married to a Japanese person or are you single, right? And so these are sort of like quantitative like
Bullet
numbers,
point.
the bullet points.
Yeah.
They're adding up, the sum of like this is how they rank you, right? And it doesn't quite always make sense. Whereas the US is like, cool, can you just pay your bills when you have to pay them? All right, outside of that, good luck, right? I mean, that's sort of like the free market approach.
Yeah, it's too extreme. But
Great.
in America, if you cannot pay your bills, you are on the street and nobody care.
That's it.
So that's something that cannot really be happen in Japan. So that they protect a lot. That if you cannot pay the bills, Japan doesn't want to pay you to stay alive.
Right.
In America, you can die. Nobody care.
Right. Right.
So it's also a protective way, I guess. But I agree, it's really connect to the trust, the level of trust. And somebody sometimes are confused about that. So they think like is a kind of racist way or protection way, but it's also for a Japanese is not easy as well. So like you don't get a loan like super quickly in Japan, and everybody will say thank you. So you have also to trust. I'm working since how many years for this company and all of this stuff. So
it's someone had told me, it's hard to get in most places in Japan, but once you're in, you're in. That system that try to filter you, right, or determine whether you're worthy enough to be there. Once you're in, they'll work hard to ensure you stay, whether that be high school or university, right, or a job, or the bank. So like it's always hard to get that preparation to get in, but once you're in, all right, now you're in. And that adds to your credibility, right? So this is why I hear like high school is probably one of the toughest time for Japanese because they're studying to get into that university that's going to determine the rest of their life, right? And it's hard to get into that university once you're in it.
It's done.
Now it's
not done.
Not to
but
diminish the quality of university education out here, but it's kind of much easier life now. It's like, okay, cool. Now you're counting the days into graduation and wherever your career path takes you and family and whatnot after that, right?
But for some European and American point of view is
right.
Also, of course, in America, if you graduate from Harvard, your life will be easier for many things.
Right.
But they can show also the opposite way. Like somebody without any graduate can be the CEO of the biggest company in America.
Right.
So they have like in another way, I guess if I look all CEOs of Japanese big company, I guess most of them are from few university in Japan, and it's like Harvard University in Japan. I have to look. I don't know, but I guess the system made in this way.
Right.
That's
it.
Interesting fact.
That's right. Yeah.
So you get this experience in Vegas. So how bring you in Japan?
So I mean, I was probably in the third year all right, so I just renewed my visa. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to be here for a while, so I have another, 3 years ahead of me. I would have to reconsider things after 6 years and whatnot. And, the job's going well, but, like anything, when you're working for somebody else and you're working all these, crazy projects and different demands, the environment changes all the time. You start feeling burnt out. So you start questioning how you're doing enough, or, all these interesting organic opportunities come up. And so you're constantly being presented options for the next thing, right? As much as I was happy and grateful to being where I was at my company, like, I'm hitting a ceiling, or I'm not seeing, if I want to be there forever. Some people were there for like 20 years or right from the very beginning. So there's, if you're in it, you're in it. But being on a visa, I knew that in my time was always going to be, short-lived at some point. I have to make a decision, move on somewhere else. But thankfully, it didn't really have to take too long, because then COVID started. So, so that final year was a little bit chaotic. I'm like, okay, what's going to happen here? And you're hearing a lot of things from leadership, and you're seeing things with your own eyes, or hearing whispers from other people in the industry, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? And I need to make a decision, because it started feeling reminiscent of the recession years, where our company was making money from the visitation taxes that the hotels were getting. Now, Las Vegas doesn't collect state tax, so they have to get revenue from visitation, right? And that's its major economy there. So when COVID started affecting tourism, that started affecting our budget right away. And so we're being, heavily invested into like one particular industry. The risk factor, increases tremendously when the market shifts like that. So I'm like, okay, this is going to affect me directly. So, I have a family, I have a home, I have a car, payments, I have dogs, I have a pretty complicated life that I can't just shift.
Responsibility.
Yeah, and that you need like a runway of time to make the appropriate moves, or like things are going to get progressively more complicated for me. So, as a creative who, had fell in love with Japan, a long time ago, I thought, well, I'm on the West Coast. My wife's Japanese. She hasn't been back properly in Japan in maybe over a decade. Might be a good opportunity to move over to Japan, ride through COVID. Maybe I can do some freelance design out there. Who knows what happens?
Okay.
Social experiments.
So you met your wife in Vegas?
I met my wife in Canada.
In Canada. Ah, okay.
Yeah. And so she moved with me to Vegas, and our daughter was born.
She was
Vegas.
immigrate in Canada. She moved to Canada.
Yeah.
Where you met.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And then she was on a dependent visa with me.
Okay.
When we were in Vegas there for 4 years. So it's all right. Let's give Japan a try. I was going to move to LA, and there was an opportunity to expand a department at a major production company, and that fell through. And so, all right, I know I'm going to need to leave the country, because no American company is probably going to sponsor a Canadian when everybody's going to be having their lives affected. They're going to be doing a lot of job cuts. And so why bother? So that was just sort of my risk assessment, saying, all right, it's time to call it a chapter. And so, all right, let's try a new chapter in Japan, and let's see what happens there. So then the journey of that process of, getting the COEs and getting the spouse visa, and I had to fly to San Francisco to meet with the embassy in person, because they serviced California and Nevada.
Okay.
So that was the closest point for me. And at that time, when I was starting the process there, that's when Japan was starting to close the border to international travel. And so it was always a lot of touch and go, and websites and emails saying very, very different things, and trying to phone them to get an answer, and not getting a hold of somebody, or getting a hold of somebody who had no idea what was going on.
But you could continue to work in this case, or you
So I was still working. So I was, before I left my company, I was getting the preparations done, because as I was doing the prep work
Mm.
And then I had volunteered to fire myself from the company so that I could get a package. So I got packaged out.
Ah, okay.
So I knew at some point they were going to start letting go of people.
So you keep it there.
So I said, instead of me quitting, like I put a lot of time into that place. It's like, all right, I'm getting the package. So I volunteered to be fired first. And I was, probably paid quite well in terms of the scale of different people that they had to go and let go to help keep the company going. I was happy to volunteer that because that would at least give me a plenty of time and money to.
So what does it mean? Like you have a package of X months of salary
Yeah,
or something
that's right.
like that,
That's right.
and
That's right.
a bonus or whatever.
That's
call,
right. Exactly that. So
and ciao.
that's it. Exactly.
You can leave tomorrow, and
Could leave tomorrow, but then that would give me about 3 months in the US to either find a new job or leave. So if I
regarding the
quit,
visa.
yes. So
Okay.
because it also affects my visa. So if I quit, I think they would give me basically 30 days.
Wow.
But if I got fired, I get about 3 months.
So you can fire yourself.
I fired myself.
I never heard
I
that.
fired myself, and I used all of that money to help move us over to Japan and start my business eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you could, so because so it was very tough. I imagine the level of stress to go at that time
Yeah.
and move to Japan with
Yeah.
you everything.
Yeah.
It was
And
quite
at the
hard.
beginning of COVID too, right? And so there was no vaccines.
Nothing.
There was so much more uncertainty,
Mm.
but it was, we didn't know, right? Like how long was it going to take?
But anyway, your wife can cook back in Japan.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at either, do I go back to Canada? Do I try Europe?
Mhm.
I mean, I have those options there, I was
And
like,
what make this decision for you?
it was like, I think I felt pretty comfortable in my career that I've accomplished enough already that I think I was ready. I mean, I had always.
Not only with you, like it was because your wife is Japanese, because your friend was already in Japan and said, maybe they have some opportunity, or what was the time like? Okay, now I'm sure it's Japan and not Europe or not Canada or whatever.
The motivation has always been Japan as a place to live and work was on my bucket list. I know at some point I wanted to do that. So it just came down to when I felt I was ready, or maybe when Japan was ready for me. I was it's an egotistical thing in that. So in the former, when I felt ready to go.
Okay.
So I knew at some point it was going to happen.
Not waiting you.
No. Well, I mean, in a sense, I'm looking at seeing TeamLab, doing what they did in Japan, like maybe they're ready for that industry, that I can contribute to that. But for me, I knew at some points I wanted to do that, and I think I felt I was ready now for it. So if not now, then when?
Yeah.
And it also definitely helps that to have a Japanese spouse would make it much easier for me to enter Japan, as opposed to, your previous colleagues that did it from scratch. And I'm sure that must have been a more harrowing experience for them to try to do that. Yeah.
And so what's happened? You send your books and stuff, and
yeah, I mean, we
decide,
call up a Japanese moving company, and they go and do the assessment. Is what we're bringing, what we're leaving behind, and great, cool. We book our tickets. Well, we needed to have our tickets booked ahead of time. I needed to have my visa already ready before even the movers can even do that assessment there. So that system of elimination there. So. You mentally basically shift the gear, like this is the path now. This is what we have to do, right? And so that was already like the world was changing for us. And not everybody in my family knew this was happening.
Because it was very short, like
very short time.
Since arrive, decide, get the visa, it's like you cannot have so much time to experiment or do something.
Literally a span of just a few months from, it's like, locking things down and getting the visa process started to like, oh, we're flying now. And the day we had to fly, like we were literally homeless. We had no car, we had no home. all our things were gone.
Dog, you could bring
The
dog.
dogs I had to leave behind.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
because of the particular breed, no airlines would take them because of the safety factors, and so we had to leave them with friends,
Okay.
which broke our hearts. But I mean, that's some of the sacrifice you have to do when you're
Take a choice.
making a choice, new chapter in life, right?
So you arrived like a homeless. What did you do? Go to Airbnb or
We overnighted at a
I-
hotel at the airports per the conditions of the quarantine, and
as well?
then we
How
had
long?
yeah
Tell us
just
more.
overnight. Then we had to do 2 weeks at the in-laws' house. So we had to basically say, all right, this is where we're going. We were allowed to travel between time. Then the government would check in on us, and my mother and father-in-law stay with family, and then basically just dropped groceries at the door
Yeah.
ever so often. So it was like 2 weeks
For with the young kids.
with the 2-year-old at that time.
Crazy.
As far as I know, it worked out pretty good, But then it's like, okay, now what, Then we moved into Osaka, and that's when everything kind of began.
Because your wife from this area.
She's from Nara area, so
From
we stayed
Nara.
in Nara. We stayed
Okay.
with her parents out there, which is
Okay.
where I live now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And so, can you explain a little bit the story afterwards? Like, so you arrive here, you say, okay, now you already decide to make the company, or
So I had registered the company in the US already. So right up until moving to Japan, I was looking at, wanting to do some sort of XR project, on my own. And I was probably June 2020. Singapore Airlines, I think most of Asia was already pretty much locking down at that point. And Singapore Airlines, had a like a virtual hackathon. They were reaching out to the world, and they wanted to look at different digital solutions or just solutions in general to help the airline industry, in Singapore in general. And so I banded together with a friend of mine in Canada and a friend of his in Hong Kong, and we just tried to put some ideas together. But one of the stipulations was you had to be a registered company anywhere in the world. Well, I couldn't register a company in the US because that would void my visa. So I said, well, can I register in Canada online? So it took me literally 15 minutes to research it. Like, oh yeah, I can. And I registered a company
in Canada?
in my bedroom in the US, in Canada, for I think $30. It was done. They emailed the certificates to my
LTD? No.
no, it was like a
Limited? No.
no. What did I do? It was like just a partnership, like some basic one.
Okay.
Very, very
More
basic,
basic,
right? So I registered my dad's house as the address for in Canada. I was like, yeah, that's fine. Which I was always using his address as my mailbox anyways. And so they mailed him the certificate. I got an email version of that, and it was a legitimate business. So once I was in Japan, I didn't really think much of it because that was just for the hackathon. But while I was in Japan, researching Osaka, I came across the local business ministry or office for Osaka City, and they were starting to warm up to the idea of international entrepreneurs, and I didn't really know much about startup business in Japan in general at this point. So I just figured it was universal, like it was just anybody has and will start up a business. But here it was kind of like the wild, wild west. So when they heard that I had a business already registered out in Canada, they're just rolling out the red carpet, come out to these meetings, we'll give you all these tax incentives, as opposed to me just registering a brand new business here. I just moved the company headquarters from Canada to Osaka, and I was like, well, that really kind of got the ball rolling. They're like, so what do you do? I'm like, I have no idea. I did a number of different job interviews, to do freelance design. I was overqualified for all the jobs, and they rejected me because they feared I was going to make too little to not be interested, because now they're factoring what I was making in the US versus what I would be expecting in Japan. I'm like, it's fine. And no amount of reassurance from me convinced hiring managers or recruiters that I was okay with this. I needed to start somewhere.
Okay.
So I was kind of left to like figure things out yourself, and still having a safety net financially. All right, maybe I'll start a business here
And your own.
on my own and see where I go from there. My co-founder now, was my best friend, and we were always staying in contact, and said like, I have this idea. Can we do this? And said, yeah, there's nothing stopping us. And this is sort of like our cultural mentality. And sort of like, well, yeah, I mean, him and I together had started up a couple of, digital companies in the past. So this is nothing new to us. So like, all right, well, can we do this, with the time zone difference like this? Like, why not? And so let's just go. So that was it. That was really sort of like the catalyst of it all. And I just kept going and going and going.
Wow. And your co-founder, so he's not here. He's
No,
stay
in Canada.
in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's only came out once to visit for like 3 weeks. And this is the thing that like the Japanese business and, and government community out here find it very, very obtuse. It's like, hey, where's your co-founder? Like, we want to meet your co-founder. Like, let's have a meeting with you and your co-founder. Like, no, he's in Canada. Why? It completely blows their mind. That's even a thing. It's like, yeah, and I have I have a virtual development team like all over the place. Like,
Yeah. Well,
you're not all in
after,
one
after
space.
COVID is more, people can more imagine than before.
Yeah.
Before it was like, would say, hey, you were working with a team on
Yeah.
Skype.
Yeah.
But now, like with freelance, digital nomad, whatever you call, it's it change. People start to understand.
Yeah, but there's still this same mentality as well. And that's also like, I guess, a bit of like a sovereignty thing as well. Like I had issues earlier before where like, one, I was probably getting the company registered here. Like, who's going to be involved and where are they, right? So I had intended to have 2 different co-founders, based on the project we were doing together for Singapore Airlines. The business here was an offshoot of that, or a growth opportunity from the learnings from that. And Japan had a problem with that. It's like, oh, you have 2 co-founders, that are outside of Japan, and you're the CEO, and they're like, the math doesn't math, and so we don't want a Japanese company to have leadership outside of Japan.
Okay.
And so they would not allow me to register the company in that manner. So I literally had to go and fire my co-founders before they were actually even co-founders, because the Japanese law demanded that.
Okay.
Right.
Strange, weird.
But for my co-founder in Canada, they allowed it because I had to give him less than 50%. So I had to have like a majority stake in the company.
So you must be 51%.
Yeah.
And the CEO of the company.
They basically told me you had to be at least 70% owner.
Or more than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because if we bring in anybody else, then they can try to then muscle me.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't really study well on this case, but I thought like you can make a kabushi kaisha with 0% on your own and be the administrator.
Yeah.
It's not possible, or
I think as
depend the case.
we had registered as a GK first.
And
there we are.
So Godo Gaisha maybe it's so
it's a
for people to understand. So I don't know. Can you explain in English? Like Godo Gaisha, I call what in America?
Godo Gaisha would be a limited LLC.
LLC.
And then a Kabukushi Kaisha KK is incorporated.
So LTD.
Inc. INC. Oh, yeah, or limited. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, no, LLC is a limited liability corporation.
Okay.
And then the Inc. Is like Inc. INC. Yeah.
So you started in Kabushi Kaisha in Japan.
Yeah, because
this one, it's maybe more limited because the Kabushi Kaisha, it's stock system. So
there's no stock system.
Not stock system.
The Gabukushi. Sorry, Godo Gaisha. Godo Gaisha was revenue only. You couldn't have investors. We had to.
But Kabushi Kaisha, you can be
normal.
Yeah. So in this, if you started with this case, you didn't need to fire your friend.
Right.
Okay.
But
you choose the simple one.
Yeah. I mean, we had to get a lawyer to really walk us through the system. And they said, well, basically, if you're not, looking for investors right now, self-funding, and, you're going to, if you're going to do freelance design, then just do that because it's easy. And it's less paperwork, much faster, much cheaper to register, less headaches in the future. Whereas, Kabukoshi Kaisha, is the gold standard here. Banks will more likely give you a bank accounts. Company deals or, getting more partnerships or customers will be easier because KK is trusted. KK is known. KK is what they know to gravitate to. Anything less than that, then, you're always then under suspicion. But complicated, expensive to do, longer process to open, and then you have to then do all your different investor reporting and so on and so forth. And it's like, I don't think a small startup needs that, but if you're raising money, you have to. And there's no other sort of alternative or smaller version in between the GK and the KK. So, that was an expensive learning lesson because we opened up one company and had to switch it over to another. And it's like, okay, that's 4 months lost and thousands of dollars just to say, yeah, we need to raise money.
So you choose the Kabushi.
Yeah, eventually.
The fastest.
Yes.
Fastest
yeah.
way in this time, in this
right.
case.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
And so you decide to co-found with your friend in Canada. And what you had already some client opportunity, like you say, for Singapore Airlines, or maybe yes, maybe not yet.
Well, nothing yet. We were still exploring. I know we wanted to build something, and so it kind of just allowed us to explore it. In the meantime, we were registered for a number of different like startup pitches and accelerators, opportunities to help get us exposure or mentorship or even sort of small levels of financing. You needed to be a registered company. And so me having to go through that, lots of proposals to write, a lot of pitch decks to write and rewrites and critique and rewrite again. And I don't know how many hours or how many versions of the same pitch deck I've done over the years. But that was hard to then try to go find clients. Clients for what? We had nothing, right? We had an idea and we had to like build that. So really it was sort of like the foundations is just to get us started for when the opportunity came to get a client or get investors. We looked legit. We had all the right paperwork there. But that just gave us now then the room to start building what we intend to build and eventually sell. And that's been many years in the process there. We've maybe only had one real client and then a lot of consultancy that we've done in between. So we haven't actually on the books really been that successful, only because our priorities wasn't sales, because we've been focusing on a product to when it's ready, we'll start selling it. And hopefully that's this year, finally.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, so you like building in parallel consultancies to be enough to work on the product and be ready to
and it's
to launch it.
Yeah, we obviously did not want to take this long to build what was supposed to be just one piece of software. It ended up being like now a suite of softwares. Whereas when you start really looking into what you need and what it's solving, you then discover new challenges you have to solve for. And that original piece of software is not going to cut it. So you need to actually then create, complementary software and like, oh, okay, we need to do this and and we don't have a dedicated full-time staff team. So we worked on, volunteers and a lot of interns through our different partnerships with governments and agencies. And so our ideation to execution happened in waves on just available resources.
Yeah.
And so you lose a lot of momentum in between that, but in between I would then go and start looking at, incubation or trying to raise capital, network a lot, find potential opportunities, potential angel investors, anything to keep me busy and keep the people interested in what we're doing. I think not working in stealth really did help us at least build a reputation, but not enough to, get us the support that we needed outside of, the support from governments and internships and, people like yourself, where we'll do it ourselves and eventually it'll all pay off in the end, kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you, so since the story behind you work and you base a big network with the startup in Osaka. You are also volunteer of something about startup.
That's right. So in parallel to, running my company in its early days, it was looking at, what are the resources, for a startup, where's the community, where can I find supports or, tips and tricks to doing things properly around Osaka. And honestly, I didn't really know much about Osaka as a city and as a place to live in. So I just was very curious, like, who's here, and they was just through my sheer curiosity and just not wanting to sit around. I started, light research on LinkedIn, see who's in Japan, and so obviously everybody I'm connected with really is in Osaka, in Tokyo. But then it's like, well, I talked to some of these people in Osaka that are still there, and then those initial touch points turned into let's meet up for coffee or let's meet up for a beer or like, hey, there's this small talk that JetRo or the local government is doing, and then you're seeing like, ooh, the quality of the conversations or the initiatives are very weak. Like there's the initiative, but there doesn't seem much substance or follow through. And I think it's just the lack of education, a lack of leadership, lack of strategy. But there's something there. And it was like, okay, well, I needed representation, some sort of stability, and some sort of community that didn't exist here. And if no one was going to do it, I'll give it a try.
Okay.
So, talking to a few other, expats out here that were looking to start a business or we were, running our own business, they had the same sort of social, dilemmas and, emptiness for them personally. So I said, well, let's band together and start, doing something. And, who would be interested in that? And one of the first real exciting partners we had was Swissnex and the Swiss consulate in Osaka. They kind of like saw that, hey, there's a lot of really interesting opportunities here, but no one's really sort of doing anything about it. And they don't have all the resources to do that. So they wanted to look for people in the community who were energetic enough and we could align philosophically. Let's band together. And so they've been kind of like, we've been attached at the hip pretty much from the very beginning. They've been just fantastic supporters through either like, offering their space for events or,
It was aligned because for people who doesn't know about Swissnex, so Swissnex is a Swiss consul in Osaka. And it was started with Felix. And it was also at around that time. There's also close to COVID or right after the COVID. And so in this, and also this consul, I think he has to explain me better than I, but they have a branch that help startup and Swiss startup to develop their business in Japan. They have also about school connections and art and artist connection as well. And you were on the startup one.
Yes. So Swissnex is part of a branch of, I think, 8 or 9 offices globally.
Yeah.
And so its mandate is that it is the design and technology wing.
Science. Yes.
Yeah, in science of Swiss diplomacy. So is to help bridge the connections with Switzerland and different countries.
Interesting fact is always the second city of the country. So it's never the
primary.
No.
Yeah, that's right. So their first location was actually Boston.
Yeah, also made by Felix.
That's right.
That's
right. Yeah. And Osaka was the first in Asia, I think, and the only one in Japan. right? So
Yeah,
now they're in South Korea, they're in Shanghai, they're in New
exactly.
Delhi.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I always found that really, really fascinating that they're using the soft power of design, science, and technology as a means to meet with all sorts of people and build a conversation, right? You know, when we're used to like diplomacy, it's always, you know, has something to do with banking or defense or agriculture, right? But like having a conversation about like, let's talk about, you know, immersive technology or architecture or music and or in the intersection of those three things. It's like, okay, this is really, really fascinating. And the fact that I'm not Swiss, but just, you know, an interesting person with an idea that aligns with them, there's just like, hey, we want to work with anybody,
Mm.
you know. And you know, I think that I like that zero walled garden approach to that, right? And I found that fascinating. I found it really, really easy now to actually then pull people in to not only just gather in one place, but have really interesting conversations and actually see the community really come out. And I think once the vaccines were coming out, were being released and things started to feel a little bit normal now, that we could actually see like who's really in the community. And we're seeing a lot of different participations from adjacent chamber of commerce and different embassies and all. You know, and this is ahead of the World Expo. So, you know, I was then running, I think, monthly startup events, you know, with different topics, you know, trying to bring in the public and private sector to have,
Okay.
you know, great conversations. We had a panel of people, then we'll have Q&As, you know, and then, you know, a networking event afterwards, you know, and, you know, Swiss Next was always either a banner sponsor or a participant in some degree, either through advertising, you know, what we're doing, which is great because Felix has a great reach, has a fantastic network, you know, and, you know, it brought a lot of credibility and a lot of trust that we were doing something right. So not just myself, but, you know, the rest of us who are just trying to figure out, like, how do we survive here? And, you know, that helped the business for sure, but it also helped me to really sort of be comfortable here.
And to get the network and
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. It's my survival, right? Like,
So what it called? So how it's like you made a website or something,
we made up
or
websites, you know, just so they have a touch point there, you know, which, you know, highlighted previous events, would highlight, you know, upcoming events, you know, and allowed people to sign up so then we can reach out to them and, you know.
so please, yeah, give me anyway all the link that
Oh
people
no, it's
can
dead
also-
now. No, we don't.
Ah, no, you stopped. You
We
stopped
stopped it. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay.
it was a full time job. So I was at some point I was working. I was doing that. I was advising in the city of Osaka, which I still am to a degree, and a few other cities, you know, surrounding in Kansai, plus my own company. I was just
It's
too tired, and then at that point, I was bringing on, you know, waves of interns and doing a lot of demos between Osaka and Tokyo. So it was like I have to start sacrificing something, you know. And now knowing that like the community is around and it doesn't need me to facilitate engagement, that, you know, it would happen naturally.
but nobody
Took it
take the
over.
lead of this.
There's been talks. I know the Austrians wanted to do that. Other smaller Japanese groups wanted to do it as well. And then there's the debate between, you know, the language, right? You know, our events were, you know, primarily English, but we could do Japanese. But our visitors, right, our audience was mostly English speaking, and if they were Japanese, they preferred English. And so as some of the Japanese groups would do a strictly Japanese events, not everybody could participate in Japanese. And so this is always the division between that, in not just at the event side of things, but just in like just groups in general. The communities were always divided based on not just ethnicity, but just language itself. And this is where you can get support. More support would be leveraged further on one side or skewed one side based on it being friendlier to Japanese than the other. And we're all seen as temporary kind of thing, you know.
And it was the way that Osaka helped you to build this kind of community and
Well, they like to say they helped. I think they would throw their name in, but I think for the most part they didn't know how to do it. They didn't know. I mean, startups as it's kind of a funny thing here in Osaka, and I think just in Japan in general, that there's always sort of been an interesting appetite for it, but it hasn't never really been a structural institution to support it, And I think COVID allowed people to think outside the box and kind of break the mold of like the corporate Japan salaryman thing, and actually start building your own business. But there was no proper infrastructure. There was no real sort of literature or guidance or mentorship. And so for, agencies within the government that are responsible for, business developments and investments, like they were thinking from like an SME or like larger corporates that were coming in that didn't need additional resources, or they're just like, all right, you have an army of lawyers and and a massive bank accounts, you're fine. But for like small businesses, they didn't know how to help them and didn't know how to engage them properly and what were their issues, right? Because they're seeing things as a lens of like, you're already making money, you already have like 100 employees, you don't need our help. And these agencies would be like grossly under-resourced. There would be like 3 people to handle like, a lot of these new startups. And there was a flood of startups coming in that were interested in Osaka because of its affordability, or because it just, it was starting to be promoted in quality of life surveys. If you can't get into Tokyo, Osaka was the next best thing. And so, which was great. It was a very exciting time, but it's also when you get here, like, okay, there's no help. No one knows how to help me. Like, what do I do? And so that was one of the reasons why I started those communities, to be that outreach, to be that friendly face.
Yeah.
That knows what you're going through, and then knows, so like, well, I've spent a few years already. Here's my tips and tricks to help you get through it. Because as much as the local government officials wanted to help, they just didn't know how to.
Yes, yeah.
And do they still know today? That's another question.
Yeah, because it's still, I think you feel as me, like Osaka can be a new opportunity for many things, and startup, I think, is also on it as well. But like you say, nobody really understand how to do. If not only Swiss Next doing something more than that.
Yeah. Well, it's also the approach too, right? Approach is different. It's kind of a cultural thing. I mean, you and I would approach business very, very different from our Japanese colleagues that would.
Yeah.
The risk assessments, weighing where do we invest our time and money, and ideation processes, or even just sheer communication, right?
I think, and I've read today or a few days ago, is one of the bottom country in the world regarding a startup.
Yeah.
I don't know which rank, but I've seen that is very
probably close to the list. Yeah.
Because the culture is not made for startup culture, for sure.
And this is the dilemma I see. I mean, we work out of a co-working space in Osaka. There were a lot that popped up during Expo, and I think it was the quantity over quality, because I think co-working spaces were a whole new concept here, so no one knew how to properly evaluate it, right? So it's either a room like this could be $400 a month or $20 a month. It just came down to whatever that person thought I or you are willing to pay for. So, and it's like you get maybe a desk and maybe a coffee machine, and that's it. Your Wi-Fi is not available. So it was, I don't know. Here's a desk, here's a space. Someone's willing to pay for it. And so, there was a point where like I had weekly meetings at new co-working spaces that were just looking for customers to justify the rent that they had to pay for, right? And some of them were like, okay, this is quite interesting. Others were just like, this is terrible. There's no way this is going to work. And most of them would close down within like months of opening. So where I'm at, luckily, is completely paid for by NTT. So it's free to use. And so it's a beautiful modern space. And their philosophy is to engage in conversation, to learn from shared experiences, and, co-creates, and, and even establish businesses and grow from there. It's still has its flaws. It's still not quite there. I think on the surface is a good idea, but I think its execution could be much, much better. I think they know it. They just, Japanese culture, they don't move that fast. They don't really pivot very quickly. And
This co-working space is made from the city.
no, this is all NTT. So this is corporate backed. So there's no public money in it.
There, okay.
So it's all corporate. So I'm like, okay, well, where's the value of that, and what are they getting from it? And I still don't know, and no one really knows. It's just sort of, it's there. So I figure I'm the product of some master plan that's NTT is doing for something. Maybe they're tracking my data. I don't know.
Yeah, because where I feel the opportunity in Japan is like, they have this culture that doesn't really match with the startup system, but they have an amount of money to invest, and I know they continue to invest in a more foreign country, but I guess that some opportunity here too.
Yeah, I mean, coming to my co-working space and just seeing the second level versus the co-create area, you see these islands of tables, people that sit at, and mostly it's clustered by single companies or people that work together. So not everybody there is a startup. People can work there remotely, because it's convenience and more room and cheap internet compared to home. But of the startups that are there, no one's engaging each other. And it just feels like we're all on separate islands, separated from each other, and like, that's not community, right?
Yeah.
That's just like, I do my own thing, and it's just invisible walls blocking us from them. And it's not sort of like it's us as a foreign startup amongst all the Japanese, like none of the Japanese companies are really sort of engaging each other. And so it's like, that's not how you really build a community. And when they do have like, networking events, it's very superficial. It's very in and out. There's really no sort of language, like compared to how we would used to, having an event at like Swiss Next. I don't really see that at like the Japanese level. And so I don't know if they're fully, aware sort of the bigger picture of how the community helps the startups, right? And so even talking with like community managers, they're worried about like, these startups are, when they do speak to like the CEOs, like they have no mentors to ask questions of like, am I doing things right? How do I do things? And it's weird because they don't have any past experience, and they're fearful that if this fails, there's no second chance. Right? It's like it's still a social marker that failure lives with you forever. Here, I mean, like I'm on my, I guess, my third or fourth company. First that I'm running myself. And for me, I don't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
And I don't really have that fear of like, oh, if this doesn't screw up, well, I'm on to the next thing.
That's crazy.
And for them, it's like, this is it. And some of them may not even be able to get like a proper job afterwards, right? If they go down this track, it's like, then I find that like that's such a horrible way of growing a community that should be innovating, and not. And then they stop themselves from really taking big risks and taking big steps because of that. If I trip, everybody's going to never let me live that down.
It's a good place to live, but not a good place to innovate. Like what I've heard from San Francisco, in a totally opposite way for Startup Nation. It's what people say is crazy. You go to the co-working space, you find new client that he give you another one, another contact. You have an investor. I don't know, maybe it's true or not, but it's really like, why this big company from San Francisco and why San Francisco continue to make this big company. It's like and I guess Osaka is not yet ready for that.
No. I mean, the soft measured, decisions by committee approach, I mean, it works great on strengthening an existing company, but to react, in a pragmatic matter is no. I mean, I think you waste so much time, fearful of making a mistake. So you're trying to over-engineer a solution instead of just, can you not just experiment, then iterate from the process there, which is the basis of what we do at our company, right? I mean, I promote wholeheartedly on let's brainstorm together, let's work out a strategy, let's not spend too much time on engineering a solution before we start, and let's just start and change and evolve as we go. If we hit a wall, let's work around that, climb over it, break through it, or whatever. Or if we say, yep, this is a dead end, that's a learning experience. Then we go back and we do it again properly the next time.
Because your product is really new and not new. So the product of what you are doing, so talking about XR, extended reality,
yeah.
is something like already started a while, like you explained also in Vegas and before. But how to implement in another scale into the different space, this doesn't really exist yet.
Right.
Or I never, TeamLab did something on their own, but of course you have some museum did also something, but never. So it's like always start from scratch, and we explore together, and we try also something for a client that it's still a big challenge to discover and match the client expectation and the product behind, I would say.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we are our tech solution is adjacent to your typical projection mapping solutions. What our goal was to try to provide like VR experiences without the headset. How do we achieve that immersion? How do we bring back shared experiences? I think we're a species of social experiences, from concerts to going to the cinema. We enjoy things better within a group, right? And I wanted to bring that back, but I also wanted us to work with sort of the spaces that we occupy in. How can they be dynamic? Not to take away from the thoughts that an architect put into making a space as is in its static form. Can a space be transformative and be curated at a given time, giving it like a sense of life, respectfully to the architectural design itself, right? And I wanted to play with that balance, that relationship there. And I thought, using technology that already existed, right, would make it, I think, more understood and adopted better, because people are already well aware of what projection mapping is, or using the use of LED walls. But then the next hurdle was the publishing. The learning curve for XR is extremely steep. And so we had to take, highly skilled, technicians and developers. I think the creative was always there, but I think the software and the pipelines was always very, very complicated there. And so our mission was to lower that entry barrier, make it easier. But because we are doing that, it's kind of brand new. So based on existing principles, there is no real benchmark. Right. And so we're always, the hard part was always being compared to the things that weren't quite us. And if we kind of allowed that conversation to go down that way, then we would diminish the quality or the integrity of what we're offering, and thus get an easy pass because, we already have the solution. Why do we need you? Right. And so it was always that trying to justify not only our worth, but like our existence. And then again, why are you doing that here in this country? Right. And so there's always been that constant battle. So we're like, all right, forget the noise. We're just going to focus on this because it's here,
Yeah, I think why this country, I think, is going to be the same another. I don't feel like the others would be different, no?
So, I mean, one of the benefits of being here, especially in Kansai area, was we have no real competition
Mm.
for what we do. And the pace to grow and just operate was so much more slower. It's a slower, compared to like being in San Francisco, where everything's just kind of like it's move fast, break things, right? It's sort
Yeah.
of the motto. And Vegas was kind of like that. The American system was always sort of like rush, 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 go, 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 like solutions by yesterday. And I said, I just wanted to do this right. I like Nintendo's philosophy of being late, delivering something late, but getting it done right is better than delivering something on time and it's broken. And, part of the
It's
industry.
your European DNA.
Oh, right,
coming
right.
from.
Exactly, right. And the one thing I always loathe as an advertiser or as a designer in advertising was we were always beholden to what an account director or project manager promised the clients. So it's not so much setting expectations, but it was just meeting an undesirable need or unnecessary deadline, right? Holding us to that. So we need to deliver it by, this date, this solution here. But it's either the funding wasn't right, the strategy wasn't right, but still,
this time
and only. And no matter what state we were in, it delivers. And then we fix it after delivery. And usually it never gets fixed after delivery. And so you're often forced to deliver something that's like 60% done. As long as it was over that 50% line, the client was happy. But you as a designer, like that's your signatures on this, your fingerprints on that delivery thing. Like, do you show this in your portfolio? Do you talk about it? And if other people in the industry, is aware of like, hey, that's still broken. That's not exactly what you wanted to do. That lives on you, right? And you may want to go work for another company, and you have to start talking about past projects.
Yeah.
And when that's part of your identity of like, you can never get anything done right, and you always have to just be satisfied with being mediocre. I said, all right, if given the opportunity, I want to do things my way. I want to do it right. And so coming out here was you never really had that pressure. And and I would instill that into all of my employees and my interns. It's like, okay, we're our own client. We deliver it right. And so whatever time it takes, we can do that. We have zero pressure there. And so that's why I liked building the company here. But then at some point, that slowness, that lack of urgency becomes, it's a double-edged sword. It becomes a problem.
But it's kind of Japanese philosophy.
Yeah.
Like a kaizen or improve yourself every single day. And for that, if it's part of your value, the value of the company is matched very well here, because here you don't deliver something if it's not perfect.
Right.
Yeah, opposite mine on what you say about San Francisco. That's why also startup and here is not innovated so much as an American.
I think also urgency is different. I think urgency really does help set that pace, especially when there's no competition.
Yeah.
Right. And so we didn't have to have that pressure of, sharing too much, and then somebody else is going to do it faster than us with like more resources. Because that could always be a factor, especially in the US. But then now it's like you hit a certain point, and the industry is growing exponentially outside of this market. So how do you meet that, right? How do you get to that level of we have clients, we have revenue, we have we're now entering in all these different markets and opportunities because they have different levels of government and private sector supports. But here it's sort of, we're going to leave you alone. We'll let you do your thing, and good luck. And so at that point, I'm like, oh, now that coziness, that soft sort of grow at your own pace, now becomes a burden.
Mm.
because now I need to grow. I hit that ceiling. Now what do I do? Now I'm trying to figure out what that next stage is for us. You know.
And did you figure out, or because you mentioned that now you are launching this product, or can
Yes.
you explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah.
Or
So Immersive Space started off as a platform to just deliver real-time interactive environments as an ambient background for our space, for our physical space there. So it was a, like Netflix-like media delivery system that we've architect. And then we started making our own environments, but we found that process to be very cumbersome. So we ended up developing a publishing tool that goes with Unreal Engine, which is a gaming software development for the game industry. So,
like you mentioned that the product you have done
mhm,
and you already show me, it's like you with the screen or what you are mapping
yeah,
on the wall or whatever is it, you can interact in the real time
mhm,
within like kind of video game,
mhm,
but you are not playing with, just you
yeah,
can adjust the environment
yeah.
in
So
the real time.
that's right. So we can deploy at scale live environments from a library. And the idea is it is to be a stationary experience. We're not exploring like an open world or or VR. It is to be wrapped around by environments that will react to you. So there's different levels of interactivity, and you can engage it any way you want. And it's not looping video.
Mm.
This is not a video game. This isn't virtual reality. These are, if anybody's familiar with, Star Trek, it's the holodeck. It's a static room that can be transformed into any place in any situation by the user.
Mm.
And so that idea of the first software turned into then, a publishing software and then a 3D mapping software. So that's okay. Now we have these environments and I have this room. How do we get the environments onto the walls or onto the ceilings or onto the floors? So we had to build a whole 3D mapping software to speak to Unreal Engine, and it allowed dynamic displays in real time. So something that
This is
had
the
never been done
biggest
before.
challenge.
That was the biggest challenge. So we published that, and now we're getting into a sales tool to educate customers on thinking about their next immersive, project there, because that's the education was always an issue, right?
In the video game industry, something that they are looking interesting about it, or because like you say, well, it's not a video game, but behind the part of the technology is video game
That's right.
technology.
That's right.
It's something like they are interesting, or
Yeah, yeah. So it's a really great point. So there's the pipeline's the same. We use the same software, and our environments are basically game levels. But instead of traversing, right, we're having it just unfold around you in a single point of view. And so the build process is the same,
Mm.
and so but now we're changing the expectations of the scale of how big these environments are based on our needs, or the scale of the physical environment as well. And so this year we started working with a game design school out of the US, and that's sort of our first active partnership to explore what that program can do for the XR industry, because it's kind of a new initiative for them. It's right now, I guess, the game industry for employment has been very, very difficult.
Mm.
And so, it has a lot of schools and graduates and just, regular people in the industry really, really concerned about what the future looks like. And XR has kind of been an emerging new medium, and it has a lot of intersecting points with animation and games and other industries that can use skill sets and thinking collaboratively. So I proposed the idea that I think XR can gain a lot from the gaming industry, or at least the resources from there, and vice versa, and grow together like that.
For sure, both we grew up together.
Yeah.
That means now nobody maybe knows that the game industry changing a lot with AI, and what I feel, what I see, that the environment will be built much faster, much easier, much looks. It will going on this way. So it will, something can be changing. It has a big impact. To the entire industry.
I mean, in this year, with this collaboration, was the first time where we're gonna actually like work with students using our software, and see like what stage of development are we in? Like, are we really that close to being commercially ready? Are we that close to really have partnership conversations with educational institutions and anybody else that might be interested in us? And the answer is yes, we're there. I mean, we're not perfect, and there's still some bugs we need to fix there, but we're now in a point where like we've validated that what we've been building for the last several years is valuable, is needed, and it has a lot of growth opportunity in several different industries. So this has been good. So we have our first like gaming backed immersive experience that is going to be showcased next week as our students are wrapping up their 8-week internship with us. So now we hope to look for the next group next year.
Okay.
To continue that and keep growing on the development from this year.
Nice. I think we arrive at the end of the episode. Just if you have some client require, so I will put everything that you can connect to you.
Of course.
So if they have some ideas, some things that they want to develop in the XR industry, you understand that you help people as a consultant, but you also help to develop the concept, to improve the concept, because we have seen, and both of us, we didn't discuss during this episode about Osaka Expo time.
Yeah.
But in Osaka Expo time was full XR pavilion for the good and not really good. Some of them was amazing, some of them was not really interesting, but we've seen more and more that the XR for museum, expo, even retail is like a back and forth, I would say. Sometimes it come, everyone want to do it, and now a little bit back that we less interesting. We'll stop with phone because everyone has a phone. So kind of back and forth. But I'm sure they have also plenty of opportunity in hospitality, and I invite everyone to see your website. So helloxlab.com.
Yes, and then the platform is immersive.space, MRSV.space.
So that is the name of the product.
That's the name of the product.
And the name of the company is HelloXLab. .com. Okay, do you want to add more information or something you want to share? Or
no, I mean, like, they can reach out to us on our websites. I'm sure you can probably share my LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. Give me all links you want to
course.
share. We had in the description, and everyone can find it.
Yeah.
Good. And we start to be hungry as well.
That's right. That's the best part.
What? 1:30 almost. Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone to listen. If there's somebody listening until the end, and I'll see you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Next
Bye-bye.
time. Thanks for watching A Life in Japan. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and discover a new perspective on life in Japan. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. See you to the next episode. Bye.